Hello, hello, everybody. I am here today with Jeremy Miller of Sticky Branding. Welcome, Jeremy. I'm stoked to talk today.
I am so glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Excellent. Yeah, so great to have you. And what we're talking about today, I think just the perfect person to come in and have talk about this because we're talking about just feeling stressed or maybe not feeling stressed and thriving through a continuing COVID-19. We're going to be talking about crisis marketing and what that actually looks like and what are some things that we can do as businesses in terms of practical, actionable insight. But before we get into that too deeply, I want to ask the same questions I always ask. So I want to start off by asking you, Jeremy, what is your particular superpower?
Oh, wow. My superpower is very much contrarian thinking with practical application. That's kind of the way I
Ooh.
like to sum it. Is I have not had a traditional approach to branding, to marketing, to even the consulting work that we do. I like to look at things from a different angle, unpack it in whatever way, but then give it back to someone, give it back to you in a way that makes sense. And if you see something from a different angle, you go, "Oh, I can actually do something with it." That's my superpower.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, not only is that an incredible superpower, but I think at least what I've seen from you is you really live it every day because I'm super stoked to get into some of the kind of frameworks and clarifying things that you've put together around this crisis.
Yeah.
But let's not ask me what I think. I'm curious, why do you think the world really needs what you do right now?
I gotta say, I feel very purpose driven. My entire business and approach changed in the middle of March. And I can think back just to the timing of it. It's so vivid. So March 11th is when North America announced the travel advisory bans. That was the same day the NBA was canceled. Then through the rest of the next 3 days, we had all the other major sporting events and conferences get closed. My entire speaking schedule for the entire year got canceled on March 13th. And so all of that was gone. And by the Monday of that week, we already started seeing the layoffs start with the shutdowns in place. And for me, I went to my clients and I said, look, we could be seeing declines this year upwards of 50%. And in some cases, it's actually been larger than that. And the reason that was so resonant for me is I grew up in a family business that was in the recruiting sector. And my parents, I can tell you in vivid detail what every recession has been like, starting with the 1989 market crash, because I would watch my family's business go up and down with the economy. And every time there was a recession, we hurt. And so the reason the 89 one made sense is I was a teenager at the time. I was like grade 8, grade 9, that type of thing. And in that recession, it was really deep. It was really painful. My parents had to do layoffs. They closed offices. They made both business, tighten their belt business wise as well as personally. And so in grade 8, when my class went on a class trip to Chicago, I actually stayed home and by myself in the classroom. Kind of oops, so sad. But it was weird to talk about this now. But that's because they couldn't afford to send me. And
Yeah.
so that muscle memory was stuck with me. And when I joined my family business in 2004, from the moment we joined, we were thinking about the next recession. And we didn't know when
Knew it
it
was
would
coming.
happen or when it was going to happen, any of that kind of thing. We just knew from history what had happened. And in the Great Recession of 08, 09, we had a plan. And in that moment, our business actually grew. We brought on a new customer a week while the rest of our market was in decline. And
Mm.
so on March 16th, March 17th of this year, right after all the COVID lockdowns were in place, all those memories came rushing back. And I went to my customers, I shared my family business story, I shared my story, and I said, this is how we're going to get after it. And within the span of a week, we had transformed Sticky Branding from being a strategy consulting firm aspirationally focused on creating sticky brands to
Hmm.
a firm focused on crisis marketing, answering the question, how do you recover the customers and revenue taken by COVID-19?
Mm. Oh, what a great answer and tied to your personal story and just so relevant to what you're doing today. That's just excellent. And so as someone who's been through, a number of recessions and has observed the impact that that's had, what would you say in particular in our industry? So, the digital industry, digital agency, digital marketing, et cetera. What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that leaders kind of have around COVID-19 and how it's affecting things and will continue to affect things?
I think the first and most cognizant one is it's going to go back. Like we say new normal and unprecedented. We have all these BS lines to describe this situation, but
Mm-hmm.
what your value propositions and services were before the start of this pandemic are largely irrelevant today. It's not
Mm-hmm.
to say that we're not doing the same services that you've always done. We still are doing pay-per-click and social media and SEO and SEM and all the other things that have always gone on. But the customer base has shifted. The buying habits have shifted. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't adapt to that permanently, it's not just a moment in time. This is a shift that will evolve slowly over the next 3 years.
Yeah.
If you don't recognize that is the reality of today, that to me is the one mistake I keep seeing agency owners make, is that hope that we will bounce back. No,
Mm.
this is normal. This is average. If Salesforce.com, for example, has announced that they have closed all their offices until July of 2021, that's a lifetime. So
Yeah.
if that's what the big guys are doing from a staffing and operations perspective, the lifespan of an agency is far more fast. We're moving and changing. That this is an adaptive environment where we just have to accept, how do we serve our clients right now and
Mm-hmm.
this fall and this winter and whatever it is, within the paradigm that we are in right now.
Yeah. Okay. So really what I'm hearing, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, is that the biggest misconception that you're observing is this idea that we're going to bounce back, not just, bounce back in terms of being able to bring back our sales, but that we're going to go back to the way that it was before.
For sure.
And what I'm hearing is that even though, things have changed a lot, they're continuing to change. The one thing that we can basically guarantee right now is that we're moving forward. We're not moving backwards. That these changes that are happening are going to continue to change. And while we don't necessarily know where we're going to land, basically, this really is happening. It's not ending tomorrow or next week. And that if you want to thrive in this, you have to accept that as opposed to deny it. Is that, feel free to correct me if I'm off.
No, you're nailing it. And,
Awesome.
and as we look at this, is the truth of where thriving comes in, is that when you accept this is where we're at and that the playing field suddenly changed, what you start to see all around us are green shoots of opportunity. Like, look at how we are using Zoom to communicate. Yes, podcasting and these kind of conversations always happen this way. But in my world, doing strategy consulting, I used to do that all in person. I traveled 50% of the time. I was in planes constantly doing annual strategic planning and quarterly retreats and meetings. All of that shifted. Now, with all of my clients, it's structured on huddles, 1 hour to 2 hour weekly huddles with the management team every single week, 52 weeks a year. And that rhythm is actually incredible. We are doing work at a speed that has never been achieved before, but it's also allowed me to take on more clients. It's allowed me to change my service model and impact. And in many respects, I don't want to go back to the old way because this is working better. And this is the
That's
kind
not
of
an
thinking.
accident. I just want to pause you there. That's not an accident that this is working better, that your future is actually looking more productive and stuff. This is something that you have created intentionally. Cool. Just wanted to clarify that. Please continue.
Yeah. Right. So when you couldn't do the work that you did before, how do you change? And as we change, you look at it, we use curbside pickup and e-commerce, and all these things became more relevant after COVID. Well, those are new habits, and many of today's habits will become tomorrow's markets. And if you look at the changing needs of your customers, the companies that move fast and adapt fastest are the ones that are serving those needs. And what we discover, just like I'm finding in my own business, is that by adapting to the new needs quickly, we're seeing that this is actually a new market, a new opportunity, a new revenue stream, a more profitable revenue stream. And in that, you can grow your business in a way that is so freeing. I think today is the greatest entrepreneurial opportunity of our lifetime.
Oh, no. And I want to get into that a little bit more, but I also want to zero back and zero in on something you said that was just so powerful for me, which is today's need can become tomorrow's markets. And maybe I'm not quoting that exactly word for word. I think I have an idea of what this means, but can you dig deeper a little bit into basically what you mean by this? You talk about green shoots. What are green shoots and how do today's needs become tomorrow's markets?
Sure. So a green shoot is in every crisis, whether it's an economic recession or a natural disaster, in this case, a health crisis, it changes behaviors. And when a behavior changes, it creates a new need. So today,
Mm.
through social distancing and stay-at-home orders, we have to use telecommuting and Zoom and Microsoft Teams. I was on a presentation this morning with the CMO of WestJet, and he said his number one competitor isn't the other airlines, it's Zoom and Microsoft Teams. Total reframing of the travel industry. And so when you look at
Mm.
that, that is a green shoot.
Yeah.
But the thing that's so interesting is this word pivot is overused. What I think
Yeah.
what we're looking for are ripples. So let me give you an
Okay.
example. At the start of this crisis, construction workers have been walking off the job sites because they perceive the facilities as unhygienic.
Hmm.
Now, porta potties are gross. No one ever wants to go to them in the best of times. But after COVID, they can be deadly. The CDC has said that the human waste contains COVID. It can be transmitted and it stays alive within it. So going into a public restroom or in a porta potty is just not the first thing you want to do. And
Hmm.
many construction workers protest. They refuse to do the job unless the construction companies would clean these facilities upwards of 3 to 5 times a day. Now,
Mm.
before COVID, that might have
That's a
happened
lot.
once or twice a week.
Yeah.
So look at the ripple effect of that. So now you've got these service companies, these septic cleaning companies that would be coming on site once or twice a week. Now are doing it multiple times a day. That means they have to keep their trucks on the road longer, which means they
Hmm.
have to hire more drivers, but they're wearing out their equipment faster. So they need new tires and brakes and pumps and valves and hoses. And from there, they're calling the distributors more, and the distributors are calling the manufacturers more, and the OEMs are building more trucks. And an entire supply chain is being activated by the need to poop safely. That's the ripple. And we see these ripple effects happening in every sector as companies are
Hmm.
trying to come online and reopen with the reopening of the economy, as we change our digital marketing strategies, going from, say, sponsorship and event driven activities to more
Hmm.
digital activities. All of these ripple effects are green shoots. And if you can find that ripple, if you can find where you fit within it, you can build your business exponentially.
That was an excellent, succinct explanation, and this sets me going in a whole bunch of different directions here.
Go
So
for it.
the first thing that kind of comes to mind, is this just specification that you have in between, the services that you offer and the needs that you fill. And I think that that's really powerful. I do think it's something that our audience kind of understands, but it leads me to kind of my next question is, when you're looking to potentially you're looking at the ripples, you're looking at where you can sit, where you can leverage these ripples. How do you find a balance between, say, innovating strategically and knowing that you're doing that, and basically kind of reacting out of fear and thinking, oh my God, I need to change something, kind of picking something and throwing into it? Like, how can you assess the ripple in a practical
Well, fear is a powerful motivator. So if we can harness that, the thing that concerns
way?
me actually right now is the fear is dissipating. So we're now
Mm.
5 going on 6 months into this pandemic.
Yeah.
The panic of, oh my, everything is being lost is over. And we're kind of going back into September, and that adrenaline rush has dissipated. So if you can
Yeah.
reharness that fear and go, oh my, I hope there's no second wave. Well, now you can start to think, well, what would I do differently? But I think that energy needs to be captured right now, no matter what you do. Just fire that amygdala up and get it going. But when you do that, being smart is absolutely the key. And I think there's really two criteria that you should look for in the potential markets. The first is, what is the speed in which you can access that market? If it's going to
Okay.
take you 2 years to build software and build a team and all this uh, opportunity, you're probably going to miss the boat. So what can you execute within a short period of time? And then the second is, what's it worth to you in terms of dollars? Some
Mm.
things are fast to execute, but low in terms of value. Like you can be
Mhm.
printing t-shirts saying, I survived COVID-19. It's not going to really, but if you're able to create a service
Mhm.
that is valuable, repeatable, and relevant, and you can get that to market in, say, 2 to 4 weeks, that's going to be the kind of green shoot you want to chase first.
Okay. Okay. So just to make sure I'm understanding this, I'm hearing that Basically, there's infinite opportunity but limited resources. So that it's really important to look at, as an organization, where your opportunity is, but balance that against your resources, in the sense that you want to be able to actually follow your idea through to action within a period of time that you're leveraging the opportunity effectively. So that's what you're saying, something you
Yep.
can roll out in 2 to 4 weeks, but also balancing that with actually making sure that you have an idea of what sort of ROI you can get back from it. So you can, you can rush into putting something out on the market, but if you're just going to be getting back dribs and drabs, it's not necessarily going to be a very effective use of your time. Versus, something that we're big fans of is, maybe going deep rather than wide, or looking how we can leverage small changes for big opportunities. This is what I'm hearing is where the ripple effect of the construction example, where all of a sudden this is something that was already being done, which is cleaning, but looking at how that needs to increase and what that opportunity is balanced against resources potentially has a huge ROI because of the scale of it in that particular example.
Yeah,
Is that,
and
am
that's
I?
actually in that. So that example, that was a green shoot for Fruitland Manufacturing, and Fruitland manufactures pumps that go on the side of vacuum trucks. Now,
Okay.
a big chunk of their business was in the oil and gas fracking sector. When that went disappeared, then the question was, where are the growth opportunities? And what they saw was the increased demand caused by the regulation and the changing space of the porta potty market. And what they saw that validated that was that the two largest service companies in their industry had call volumes increased by 600% in April.
Whew.
So that became the thing to identify. But as we've gone through this, the second green shoot that came out for Fruitland was their direct competitors have had supply chain issues, manufacturing in northern Italy and China, and they can't get their product to North America. So they have now been able to run very effective Facebook campaigns showing their products with available now, order today, ship today kind of messaging, and they have a series of lines, and that is capturing a lot of rapid market share. So they're able to target specific industries and geographies with a very clear call to action. Now, this has been iterative approaches. You keep learning as you do it, but as you find it, you go after it and you go a little bit deeper. Now, not all of your ideas are going to work, though. I can tell you from a personal example. So when I pivoted my practice to crisis marketing, in March, we launched two services. One was a strategy consulting process that is sold in a retainer model where we work with our clients every single week. And then we created a low-cost online course, a cohort-driven course that we thought we could put this out to a larger audience. It probably wouldn't make as much money, but it was $500, and we could hopefully put in a few 100 people was actually the target. We sold one. We cold called so many people. We marketed so hard, but after 30 days, it was like pushing a noodle up the hill. It was so hard to sell. Whereas on the retainer side, we've averaged bringing on a customer a week. And so, and the price difference is exponentially different. But what it really proves, though, is as you're going after these, not all of your ideas are going to work, but you have to be willing to try it, sell it, at least get in front of 10 prospects. If you can't sell it with 10, go to the next green shoot. Once you find one that works, then you continue to iterate and go deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah, I really like that idea, because what I'm hearing is that you're balancing rapid iteration with scale. You're not saying, okay, this new idea I have has to be the absolute genius idea that's going to push us forward. It's really just, okay, this is an opportunity. Here's a, rapid, simple, kind of minimum viable product way we can get it there. We can see whether it works. And then I'm hearing that then you iterate, then you scale, then you get deeper once you see what's sticking to the wall, so to speak, like what's actually working. Now, I'm
And it's
curious though,
also
because
really
change can,
deliberate.
oh, pardon
Sorry.
me?
It's also really deliberate. So the other part of this is we all need cash. We all need customers. So what's driving this mentality right now is how can you shore up your cash and your revenue if you've been hit hard by the crisis? So the way to thrive is by increasing your cash flow. And if you lose your large customers, then how can you get the iterative smaller customers to fill in the gap? And that's the core to this whole thing is how can you be helpful? So how can you serve a need? How can you package it in a way that someone wants? And then how do you sell it as quickly as possible so you got cash flow to survive another month?
Yeah, that would be a critical part of it, right? Because at this point, a lot of businesses that are in crisis mode, it really is like month to month, we don't know what it's going to look like in a month or two.
Yeah.
And this actually leads really well into my next question, because I really think that change can look a lot of ways. And one of the things that was so helpful for me in the way that you framed it is because, a few months ago, we were also in this position looking at where can we pivot? How can we serve needs better? And we really saw just almost an overwhelming amount of opportunity, because we're like, well, we can serve new needs within our same audience. We could potentially serve new audiences altogether. And then there was, how much energy do we put into potentially pursuing a new audience if we don't know that it's going to work? And it just turned into this big confusing mass. And I was really impressed by the way that you break this down in kind of your zones of green shoots and how to navigate that. Could you please share that with our audience, kind of what those zones are and how you navigate them?
Sure. Well, so the best way to look at it is just through a graphic. So if you go to stickybranding.com, the crisis marketing ebooks, it's available as a free guide. So you can download it and you can see it and get the tool we're going to refer to. But it's a simple 4-box model. And we look at where green shoots are, where the growth opportunities really sit in one of 4 zones. So the first place we look is your existing customers and your existing products and services. And we call that the core. And so you look at what you do today and you say, okay, based on the constraints that we are being imposed on, how do we adapt our products and services to serve our customers' core needs? So it might be a rebalancing. For example, if you were doing a lot of event-based marketing and sponsorship, maybe shifting to more digital social media type of activities. But how do you serve your customer based on the current environment? Now, that'll take you only so far. So where we start to see the growth is by looking to the corners. So the first corner is, how do you take your current products and services to a new market? So what are ways that you could take your existing services, maybe to online, to a different geography, or even a different vertical or niche? The other is to look down to the second corner. So how do you take your existing customers and then offer them new products and services? And I'll give you an example of that. And then the fourth corner, if you go kitty corner to the core, is really you're looking at new products and services for new customers, which essentially is a new business unit or a new service that you've never sold before. That's the hardest one. So we tend to look to the corners. So in one specific example is Last Minute Training. So Last Minute Training is a Canadian company. They are an online marketplace selling Microsoft Teams training and other training courses. And they were very much in the business of in-person events. They called themselves Learngistics, which was the logistics of learning.
Yeah.
80 or actually close to 90% of their business disappeared in March because it was all on in-person events. And so the pivot that we did was focus on virtual events and conferences. And so the first thing we looked at is with the existing customers, how can we offer online virtual conferences and events? So we went to the bottom corner. And then as that got mastered, we went to additional markets. And today, what Last Minute Training is doing, especially on the Learngistics division, are what they call WOW events, which are highly produced virtual conferences that are being delivered primarily to software as a service and software companies and wealth management firms, where the event matters. It's not about just putting on a trade show or a crunchy Zoom meeting. You need TV quality production. And they have recovered, they have bounced back really, really quickly. They're doing incredible events, but it's proving incredibly successful. So for example, Dayton is a software company that I've worked with for a very long time. They had an annual users conference that would have roughly 50 to 75 people that would attend every year. They just did their virtual conference last week with over 800 registered attendees, with an average of 370 concurrent users over 3 days. They went from a niche conference to a global conference in just this paradigm shift, and it was incredibly successful.
Okay. So what I'm hearing, and I love these concepts of zones, you've got your core zone and then you've got the ways that you can kind of move from there. And you have kind of 2 directions you can go that are a little bit more effort, and then one direction you can go that's a lot more effort. I'm hearing from you that we don't pick a zone and just kind of stick there. I'm hearing that you kind of start with the core because that's kind of your low hanging fruit. And
Yeah.
then as you kind of understand what the situation and opportunity and resources are there, you then kind of move and check out maybe one of these next two, either offering services or products you already have to a new market, or offering the existing market basically new or different products or services, and really taking some time to see what you can do within those zones, because it sounds like you can do quite a bit within
Yeah.
those zones before you consider, just starting something totally new for a new group of people, because that's the most intensive. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, treat it as a brainstorming exercise. So the way I
Hmm.
often facilitate this is I'll put up a Jamboard, so Google's virtual whiteboard, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
just draw the four box on there, and I'll ask the group, because we're everything's having virtual now, is
Mm-hmm.
let's brainstorm as many items for each zone. So what can we do in the core? What can we do with new products? What can we do with new markets? What can we do with new business? And we'll just drop down the post-it notes, as many as we can for each one.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we do is that what we talked about earlier, which is the validation of which are the opportunities that we should go for first. And in an ideal
Okay.
scenario, when you can prioritize what can we go after fastest and which is going to have the most economic value to us, if we could be running a 4 to 6 week sprint and just testing two at a time, and you can
Mm.
iterate over this. Now you end up getting exhausted, because as soon as you find two or three that work, you start going deeper on them. You don't need to keep
Yeah.
the iteration. But in the
Yeah.
starting point, if you are just at the beginning of your journey, brainstorm wide, find two to test, knock the ones off that don't work, and then just keep doing it again and again until you find two or three shoots that you can grow with.
Yeah, it's really, this is great. This is exactly what I love: practical, actionable, something that people can go and start doing today if they wanted to. I also want to note that this is really cool, because our thing that we kind of pivoted harder into is this concept called growth strategy, which follows a very similar process to this, actually, which is the brainstorm, rapid iteration, focus hard on, say, two things that are maybe working, see what works well, scale it, and let those other things go instead of continuing forward. So that's really cool. Now, I'm curious, though, is that this is all well and good to talk about. And I think you've given us kind of an easy first step that people can kind of start doing. But
Yeah.
what would you say is stopping more businesses, especially within the digital agency world, from actually doing this and embracing this? Is it that, thought that things are going to go back to normal? Is it something different or something deeper? What is kind of the barrier that you're seeing that some of our audience members might be experiencing that might stop them from going through this?
I think it's fundamentally fear.
Mm.
I think it's fear of the unknown, fear of success, fear of starting something that you don't fully understand, fear of of creating. It's that perfectionism, I think, is another form of
Oh,
fear, where
yes.
you're trying to create the perfect idea before,
Mm.
whereas it's just, that's why I love the fear at the beginning of COVID, because it became an accelerant. It wasn't that was
Yeah.
a change agent. It just meant, holy crap, I need to move forward on this and just get going.
Yeah.
Right now, though, that adrenaline's worn off, and now we're thinking too much. And then as we think too much, the fear of starting kicks in again. And so
Yes. Comes
I think it's
paralyzing.
all that emotional mind messing that's going on, versus less thinky think, more doy do.
Mm. Yeah. And would you say that that's kind of the solution, is just stop thinking so much and start doing? Or is there something else that you would kind of recommend to kind of get that fire going again in people?
Well, I think everyone's got their own process. What I have seen within sticky branding and the work we do with our clients on this idea of crisis marketing is it's an emphasis on strategy execution. And
Mm.
so the way I format our relationships is it's that weekly huddle that is working on the business in a structured format, but we use a set of tools in terms of strategy execution, and it's in the accountability and the execution done every 7 days is where we're creating velocity in terms of strategy. And when you look
Mm.
at companies like Last Minute Training, where they're bringing back 10 and 20% of their revenue in 10 weeks, or other clients that we've worked with where they will actually double in size this year, it's not because they have the most brilliant strategy, it's that they're working on it every single week and doing the work every single week. And rather than getting too caught up on the thinking and waiting for perfection, it's learning as they do.
Mm. Yeah, that wasn't where I was expecting you to go with that answer, but I think it resonates once again just very strongly for us as an organization. We are on track to have massive growth this year and in the next year, kind of, I would say, despite, but really in some ways, COVID has pushed us forward. And so I disagree 150%, because if you look at what we're doing, it's not like we started thinking strategically when this crisis hit or when any crisis hit. What we did is we leveraged the habits that we already have around creating strategy, around it. Funny, 7-day cycles is totally what we do, quarterly and weekly, basically. And then we have kind of monthly themes that kind of push us forward a little bit, but really it's quarterly and weekly that we make consistent progress. And all of this stuff you're talking about brainstorming, putting things down, kind of deciding where you're going to go first, starting on the rapid iteration, diving deeper on the places where the rapid iteration has been successful. What you're describing is a strategy. And I think that strategy is sometimes an overused word, and a surprising amount of people may or may not understand what that actually means. But it is making a plan that looks towards the future, that you're executing on, checking in on regularly, and that is flexible enough that you can pivot according to the data that's coming in. And that's really what I'm hearing from you is a really critical thing here. So thanks for giving us some really specific ways to start putting this into practice. Now, we've covered a lot of this already, so I don't want to rehash what we've already done, but so much of this on an action level is where we've been talking, how to kind of defeat your thoughts and start taking action. I do perceive that there's a strong mindset component to this.
Sure.
So if we're talking about maybe people who are listening or people in the industry who don't have those strategic routines set up, like they're struggling to get into that weekly touch basis, or struggling to get in a place where they're looking ahead and kind of revising according to data and kind of shifting. What are some of the things at a mindset level, not just an action level, that can help transition an organization that's maybe feeling a little bit chaotic to maybe push to put these structures and these habits into place?
I think there's two things that I recommend and that I have observed that's worked really well this year. The first one is what I describe as a warrior mindset. And I've referenced the amygdala before. It's that fight, flight, or fear response that we've got. And that can be really paralyzing. But I also think it's really energizing if you're able to harness that fight response. And I remember for myself at the beginning of this crisis, I would often say, F this virus. And I would just get all riled up and be like, this thing is not going to hold us back. We're going to conquer the obstacles. We're going to rise up. We're going to have our best year ever. And I gave that speech many, many times. But it was true, and it was coming from a very strong place, because there was no way that we were going to work as a company and get knocked down. We were going to come out and grow, and we are, and this will be one of our best years ever. But I've seen that with all of my clients and every firm that I've been working with, is that entrepreneurial spirit kicks in. And I think it's really separating the entrepreneurs from the wantrepreneurs. It's if this looks to you like an opportunity and you're going to punch back, this is how you're going to be able to find the strategy, find the talent, and motivate your whole team. It's that warrior mindset. It's not to be top-down patriarchal style leadership. It's fight. It's realistically fight. So that's one. And the second one is, it's not about you. It's about everybody in your team. And so how do you harness the collective genius of your whole team? Your whole team needs that warrior mindset. Every idea matters. Every action matters. Pulling that team together and empowering people is actually where the true speed of execution is coming from. If it's all stuck in the entrepreneur's head, it's not going to be pretty.
That's just so great. I love that. So the warrior mindset that I'm hearing, this is and I'm going to get nerdy. Well, I guess it's not everybody knows Game of Thrones, but it's that like not today, it's that idea that you have made a decision inside yourself before you take any action, but also you're letting it drive your action, that you're not going to get crushed today. Like the business is not going to be crushed. In fact, you're going to thrive. You can thrive. You are going to use this to propel yourself forward. And that's kind of where it all starts. That's how I'm hearing and defining what you're calling a warrior mindset, is that like decision that you are going to move forward, even if it's hard, even if you feel like you're getting crushed by the world sometimes. It doesn't matter, because you're going to keep fighting. You don't want to sit down and let the world steamroll over you. And the second part that I'm hearing to that is that it's not enough for you to be feeling this. It's not just your job, but your opportunity as a leader, leading an organization, leading a team, to get everybody else fired up on this mindset as well. So that you guys are, it's us versus the problem. You know, it's like we are fighting, we are going to win because we have this power. And that I'm hearing that starts before the brainstorming, before anything. That's something you need to decide for yourself and carry forward into the energy you're bringing to what you do.
Yeah. Well, we just need to harness your energy. It's awesome.
Oh.
Like you get all the fire going. That you were feeling that, and it's in your core, and that is, it's not always a joy place, but it is a fight place that you are going to punch back. You're going to win, and that winning mindset, I think, is your source of energy to deal with the nonsense that's being thrown at us.
Yeah.
But the other part of this, on the team side, is really the thing that, again, is that mistake I see so many entrepreneurs make, is they say no. And so what's happening is someone brings forward an idea, and especially at the heart of the crisis, should we go after this market? Should we do this? I've got this idea and we don't have the budget. We don't have this. No, no, no. And the people start to shut down. And you kind of have to conquer that voice in yourself of saying no. If you hear that word coming, start slapping your hands, whatever you got to do, because you need to put that sword or that spear in your employee's hand and empower them to throw it. And that, I'll give you an example. So Central Smith is one of Canada's largest ice cream manufacturers. If you've had ice cream in any Canadian restaurant, chances are you've had their ice cream. Well, as you can imagine, at the start of the crisis, with all the restaurants closed, their business was absolutely negatively affected by this. And they had an overstock of all this ice cream sitting in the freezer that the restaurant trade wasn't buying. So two of their young employees got the idea, so what do we do? So they put up a Shopify store. In the span of a week, they put up a Shopify store. They put up the overstock items they had. There were 6 flavors. And they got the word out by approaching a local chamber of commerce, so the Peterborough Chamber of Commerce, and a few food bloggers. And the response was simply overwhelming. The first week the Shopify store was up, it outsold a normal month in the retail store. And every week it has gone bigger than that. So the second week they put the entire catalog of flavors out and sales increased. Then they started putting out the 11.4 liter tubs, like the giant industrial tubs. And people would be driving up and they're doing the curbside pickup, and they put in 2 of these tubs of ice cream in the back of some dude's trunk. And the team was laughing. They're like, the 19 in COVID is going to mean something very different at the end of this. It's that freshman 15 scenario. But they just kept leveling up. And every time they did that, they got better. And what they described this as internally is going from an and/or culture to an and culture. So what Brett Stevenson, their COO, says is people would say, this was my job before. Afterwards, this is my job, and what else can I do? And so they have empowered. So Jillian and Megan created the Shopify store. They didn't ask for permission. They go, I got an idea. They put it up there. Nobody stopped them. And when sales went up, everyone got high fives and rewards. And then they have done that across the entire organization now, where they are basically running 24/7. Can't keep up, probably will have their highest sales numbers this year, even with everything going on with COVID.
Dang. And it starts with, you know, allowing the people in your team the space and encouraging them to take on that leadership mindset, is what I'm hearing. To be like, you know, this is what I do. And as you put it, maybe this is something else we could put out there. Maybe this is something else that we could give it a shot. And I know from experience that as a leader, it starts out as this responsibility, you know, like you are in control, you're responsible for making sure that the other people on your team are, achieving their outcomes and et cetera. But I have definitely caught myself in the past shutting down people who had a great idea because it wasn't my great idea. It wasn't the way I envisioned it. And what I'm hearing here is the true danger in that. And again, just kind of expanding now, this isn't specifically COVID or crisis specific. But I have had an experience like this recently where I've learned that as I give my team the space, I can be the guide rails for them and kind of give them the accountability that they need. This is what we need to accomplish. This is what the data needs to tell us. But I've learned that if I give them the space within that, then heck, ideas that were in my brain that I wanted to execute, or that I, had passed through my brain and I thought maybe one day I could execute. Someone has come to me even just in the last few months and been like, hey, so I want to do this. I want to do it differently than how you were imagining it, which I didn't even know you were imagining it. And this is what I want to do. And all I had to do was say, go. And that in particular, that was like a live training that in the end, was very successful and has opened up this whole new realm of opportunity for us. But it started with me not just not saying no, but giving them the space to feel comfortable putting that out there. And so, yeah, I'm so glad.
Kudos
so
to
glad
you. And it's not easy. It's counterintuitive, especially when you're in the height of when things are great and you got tons of money and tons of customers and everything's great and rosy, which never, ever, ever happens. So it's never easy. And especially this year, it's not been easy. But what you do when you do that is you build your team, you build your capacity. And that's actually true entrepreneurism.
Yeah. And I will say that the power of building a strong team, and my team comes back to us and says to us all the time that the number one thing that they love about our organization is number one, that we're transparent with them. We keep them in the loop. When we had our 3 days of that I won't get into too badly, and I had to go to the team and be like, we are in a bad way. I'm sorry to say this. There's no easy way to say this, but we are in a bad way. People were grateful to us for being real with them. Yeah. But the other thing that we hear back all the time, pre-COVID, post-COVID, is that they can't believe how much we care about their opinions, because, and we had not one, but two different people come to us during COVID after I had that conversation and say, what can I do? Is it okay if I keep working even though you potentially can't pay me right now, because I believe that I have something to add and I believe there's something to do and you care about my opinion. And that for me as a leader it just floored me. I was like, holy cow, I just had one of the most difficult leadership moments of my life. And the team is coming to me and asking me what they can do just to keep us going, for free. Holy cow. So this is real stuff. This is
goosebumps.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's just so incredible. And it's hard, but at the same time, it gets easier. The more you do this hard stuff, the more it gets easier. Even the process of critical thinking and strategy and all this other stuff. Anyway, Jeremy, I could just keep asking you questions about this indefinitely and go down just many super awesome, valuable rabbit holes. But I want to just be respectful of your time and pull us back here a little bit and just pivot us a little bit into, not a little bit, but pivot us into the questions that unfortunately are going to wrap us up. And the first one is, what gets you up in the morning? You know what gets me up in the morning now. It's literally this. Not coffee. What gets you up in the morning?
It's the same, but I think after COVID, it's become very purpose-driven. It's coming from my own experience and coming through this work over the last 6 months has been, how do you recover the customers and revenue taken by COVID? And how do you slingshot your business out of this crisis? And the strategy work that we do every day is some of the most meaningful, purpose-driven work I've ever done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well said. Well said. All right. Now, what is the number one thing that you do to preserve your wellness?
That I have not done great on COVID, to be fair. But I do know my routines, and it's specifically when I've got my diet under control, walking daily, CrossFit multiple times a week, and giving myself the space for health and exercise performs better. The last few months have not been ideal for the health side.
Yeah, I think, and thank you for being real about that. I'll be the first to say that even though I have all these really cool stories around COVID and stuff, I was on a 2-month no stress, which is a record for me pretty much. And then it's been a bit more challenging.
It's been the most intense of my career. I'm only coming back to normal and having 60, 70-hour weeks. We were pulling 18-hour days, 7 days a week in the middle of it all, just onboarding, dealing with clients. It was really purpose driven, but everyone burnt out. We all hit our lows going into June and July.
Well, that's literally why I asked this question, is because I think we can get into actionable stuff until the cows come home and pour ourselves into it, but overachievers need to preserve their wellness. So yeah, all the things you said, all things that are important, whether or not, you've been max successful at them lately.
Yeah.
And before I let you go, do you have any last words of wisdom that you want someone listening to walk away with?
I think the one thing, and we've hit on it many times today, is I think this is the greatest entrepreneurial opportunity. You have the
Yes.
opportunity today to do whatever you want. The playing field's level. You have access to capital. We haven't even talked to the programs that are available both in Canada and the US and even Europe. And your customers want you to succeed. So this is a moment of innovation, and it's really set up for the bold, the entrepreneurial, the action oriented. The resources are there. The community is there. Everybody is thriving right now who want to thrive. And I think that's the key point. This is the choice. You can wallow and focus on the negativity and just be in a survival mode, or you can choose to rise up and conquer this thing. That warrior mindset. Are you gonna like thump your chest and get riled up to work today, or are you gonna sit and look at the news?
Yeah, I think something that just comes to mind is, are you going to let fear be your tailwind or your headwind? Are you going
Yeah,
to let fear push you forward into this new normal, this new reality, so that you can create it to be what you
amazing.
want it to be? Or are you going to let it kind of hold you back and potentially crush you, and just be at the whim of whatever the world happens to do next? Which I don't know about you, but I would rather be in control than let the world control my shit. I'll just say that. All right. And can you just let the audience know how they can find out more about you, check out anything you might have for them? We'll add all the links in the show notes as always.
Easiest way to find me is just Google Sticky Branding. You'll find the website stickybranding.com. I'm on all the social networks with the handle Sticky Branding. My first book is called Sticky Branding. It's on Amazon. But yeah, if anyone has any questions or anything, feel free to direct message me or email me. And what we referenced today was the Crisis Marketing ebook, and that's up on stickybranding.com.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And I'll say, as someone who's a content person and also not really into ebooks, the Crisis Marketing ebook is really good. It's really good. Just go download it. We have a link in there. Even as someone who's already pivoted during COVID and all this type of stuff, it really helped me understand why our decisions have worked and what decisions we can make that will continue to work. Pretty darn valuable.
Thank you.
Just putting it out there. All right, to everybody listening, as always, I hope you have an excellent rest of your day. If fear has been part of your day today, I encourage you, just see if you can find that warrior mindset. Ask yourself, are you going to let fear hold you back? Are you going to thump your chest and go, I've got this. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to own this. And even if it feels weird, I encourage you, if you're not feeling it, just try making the sound, try thumping your chest. Feels good. All right, guys, take care. Have an excellent rest of your day.